If you've been to therapy before, maybe even multiple therapists, and yet you still seem to keep having the same fight with your spouse over and over again, you're not alone. Conflict isn't as much about communication skills as you may think. It's about how your relationship is using conflict. You remember when you were a kid and you would go to a museum and you'd put a little penny in a big funnel. And at first, the penny would go around the funnel very slowly, but as it got deeper into the funnel, it grew in intensity. To understand the conflict that's happening in your marriage, you need to understand how your communication operates just like that funnel and its 3 layers. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about that. I'm also going to teach you 3 vital communication skills that you can start practicing right now. Very often, when I talk to a couple for the first time, I'll hear something like this. Listen, we've tried therapy in the past. It had some benefit for us, but it just didn't seem to help us with this issue that we keep having again and again, year after year. Why does that happen? Well, this happens because therapy often doesn't address the deeply rooted challenges with conflict. Maybe you've gotten some surface level support, like maybe somebody's talked to you about I statements, or the different love languages, or primary and secondary emotions. I know these all because I also used to teach these things to my clients for 15 years before realizing this is ineffective unless we get into the root of the problem. And what is the root of the problem? Well, it comes down to this. You have to understand that conflict is doing one of 2 things for your relationship. In all relationships, we have 2 main impulses. The impulse to be a unit, to be a relationship, and the impulse to be an individual. Successful relationships balance these 2 impulses as they change with different events happening in our lives. For example, when kids come into your life for the first time, the impulse to be a unit is strong. You have to be strong to be able to raise these young children. But as time passes, maybe you've been married for 10 years, you may notice that the impulse to be yourself has grown stronger. Healthy conflict is the way that you keep yourself an individual. It is a necessary part of being in a marriage. You notice that it's healthy because even though emotional intensity may be high, respect is still there, understanding is still there, active listening is still there. Unhealthy conflict, on the other hand, is required when a relationship doesn't have enough intimacy, and it descends down the funnel of communication to create that intimacy that it so badly needs. Every single marriage requires a high level of intimacy. And if you are avoiding that intimacy, your relationship will force you down into conflict. So I want to bring you back to that visual of that funnel at the museum as you were a kid watching that penny go down. The top layer of that funnel is logistics and teamwork. We all have it. It's the lowest amount of intensity. You're planning the week ahead. You're talking about your kids' schedules. You're coordinating trips. You have to have this layer because you run an institution, one that's responsible for the well-being of your children, the well-being of your family. But this is very low in terms of intimacy and connection. Now imagine the penny going a little bit farther down that funnel, but it's also getting a little bit more intense. That middle layer, that's where intimacy and connection are. At this level of communication, you're going beyond the logistics. You're asking your partner, how are you feeling? What are some burdens that you've been carrying that I need to understand? You're sharing things with them that they did that upset you. You're not avoiding conversations. Now, it's very difficult in a marriage to have these conversations well. Most of us are not equipped with healthy communication skills, good emotional intelligence, until we get older into our lives. In fact, many of us don't even focus on those things until some kind of a crisis or a disaster has happened to us. So for that reason, we stay up there. We want to stay up there at that first layer of conversation, teamwork and logistics. Up here, it's safe. The problem with that is that you have a marriage, and a marriage requires deep, deep intimacy, and it will get it one way or another. So now watch that penny go farther down that funnel. As you get farther, you remember when it used to spin really fast at the center, the most intense part of the funnel. If your relationship has to rely on conflict to draw you in together and get that intimacy, even if it's uncomfortable, your conflict will be hostile and volatile. So what you need to do is to develop a practice on purpose of having hard conversations consistently, daily, and not avoiding anything. How do you do that? Well, it can't hurt to have some good communication skills, and today I'm going to teach you 3 of them. Number 1, non-judgmental listening. If you can imagine Watching a movie that you love. It's a movie that captures your attention. You don't have to think when you're watching it. And when you watch it, your emotions tend to follow the movie. If it's intense, you feel intense. If it's sad, you feel sad. This is what non-judgmental attention is. But if I asked you to watch that movie like a film critic, everything would change. Your emotions would be out of touch. You'd be analyzing what's going on. This is what it looks like to listen when you're having unhealthy conflict. You're not directly engaging with what you're hearing. You're analyzing it. You're judging it. You have to practice listening to your partner like you're watching a movie without the criticism. What are they saying? What are they telling you? You do this primarily by reflecting back to them what they've told you or asking questions about what they're telling you. You don't focus on the timeline, the facts as you see them, or the specific nuances of what they say that offend you. The best way to have healthy conflict is to make sure that your partner knows you understand them. Number 2, tentative language. Tentative language acknowledges that you and your partner are two individuals having one experience together. When you tell your partner, no, this is the way you said it. No, this is what you meant when you said it. You are trying to take authority over two people's experiences. When you say instead to your partner, this is the way I heard you, this is what I understood, you're using tentative language to invite their feedback. Now, sometimes these first two tools don't work because your partner isn't showing up and doing their part. When this happens, you need to use the third tool. The third tool is a communication boundary. A communication boundary is meant to protect you from an experience you don't want to have. If your spouse is showing up with a lot of disrespectful language, being critical of you despite the fact that you're trying to show up for them and listen, or if they're being harsh or hostile, this is when you use a communication boundary. The language of a boundary is like this: I'm willing or I'm unwilling. It has nothing to do with their behavior. A boundary is not, you can't talk to me like that. That's a demand. Your partner can talk to you like that, and they will probably double down if you use that language. You have control over your own experience, and that's how you use a communication boundary, and it goes like this: I'm not willing to continue in this conversation if you talk to me like that. The importance of a communication boundary is that you show your partner your own value. Now, boundaries can be too rigid or they can be too diffuse. What that means is if you walk away from your partner every time they try to talk to you, you're telling them you're not willing to engage in difficult conversations. You're using a boundary, but it's too rigid. You can also stay in a conversation and just listen to your partner scream at you until they get it all out. That's a too diffuse boundary. A healthy boundary teaches your partner about your value, but it does it by not closing the door. You're saying, I'm not willing to continue in this conversation. If you speak to me like that, gives them the opportunity to change how they talk to you. Your relationship, above all, needs intimacy. And I'm not talking about physical intimacy. I'm talking about emotional and psychological closeness. Without it, it will attempt to use conflict in unhealthy ways. If you notice that this is something happening in your relationship, try using the 3 communication tools that I've taught you in this video. And if you'd like to learn more, I'm rolling out free courses about communication, intimacy, and other topics related to marriage all the time. Check the link below and hang in there. I'll see you again soon.